Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before we get talking too much about today's video, I just want to say thank you. Our little community here is really growing. I had a goal, and I know it might sound like a small goal, but it's a big deal to me. I had a goal to make it to 300 subscribers by April. I think I might actually make that goal before March now, at the rate this is going. So I really want to say thank you. It means a lot to me that you guys are enjoying what I'm sharing and that we get to talk about it. It truly means a lot to me. So thank you. Thank you for being here. If you're not already subscribed, please consider it. Today we are here to set up my bullet journal for the month of March. I wanted to give a nod to St. Patty's Day, put some green in there. I had planned on doing this kind of doodle spread with all sorts of different tones of green, and I just decided that that was not for me. It was not the overall vibe of my planner. It's not the direction that this year and my journal is going. It just didn't work for me. So I found some small nods to St. Patrick's Day because it is March. I'm a teacher. I love a good theme. I did incorporate some green, and I found some really subtle ways to incorporate shamrocks. Obviously, you can adjust this to do whatever. If you are all about going buck wild for St. Patty's Day, you go right ahead. You draw all the shamrocks you want. You can swap out some of the colors for different shades of green. It's totally up to you. If you're not into it at all, leave out the shamrocks. Let's go ahead and see how it turns out. All right, apologies in advance for any background noise you hear today. I have the window open because the weather is actually semi-decent and this fresh air is doing me some good. I am starting my March cover page with a girls can quote. March is actually Women's History Month, so I wanted to do something to honor that in my planner. I found a lot of really nice, profound, but also long quotes, and I don't know, I'd never end up liking the way those look in my bullet journal. So I went with a very short, sweet, and to the point girls can. I actually have that printed out on a Rosie the Riveter and put up in my room. And you know, it is teenage girl approved. I get lots of compliments on it. I will go back to decorating that in a minute. Right now, I'm focusing on this March part. Now, this is not actually Kraft paper that I'm using. This is like cardstock paper, but it's the same color, so it gives the same vibe. And you know what? I kind of like it more because it's thicker and it's got more layers, so you can kind of tell how the edges there get a little bit lighter and they're a rougher texture. I don't think that is so obvious on actual Kraft paper. I'm also very particular about how this March ends up looking. Sorry, guys. At least when I write it on paper like this, if I mess it up, I can just toss it and I don't have to worry about figuring out how to fix it on the page. P.S. There's something really satisfying about watching myself tear that paper in the playback. Now what I'm doing, I got some tape around that double-sided tape on the outside of that Kraft paper. And if that happens to you, you don't want your pages to get stuck together or anything, so you can just use an eraser like I am to get rid of the sticky, aka adhesive. So like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to incorporate green in this theme because, hello, it's March. But I didn't want to go with the full-on leprechauns and pots of gold. If you do, you boo. So for my reading setup, if you have watched it, my reading journal setup, I did some abstract kind of circles and shapes and waves like this, and I loved how that turned out. So I mentioned in that video that you might be seeing it again, and here you are, seeing it in March. While we're here, I recently purchased the 100 set of Crayola Super Tips, and I'm definitely getting a lot of use out of them in this video. But I was curious, would you like to see me swatch all of them? Is that something that would interest you? Because that's going to be a beast of a video, which I don't mind as long as you actually want to see it. So please let me know. I'm also adding in these rainbows. I know they're a really big trend right now, and I'm so glad because I love them. There's something so pretty about this long, oddly shaped rainbow and these really soothing colors and the cute little dots and things. It just makes my heart happy. And I can also say, hey, I've got some rainbows in my March setup. I added the poppies too. I'm not really sure why. I just really like to add some florals in there. Most of my themes have something to do with a floral or two, so I threw in the poppies. I felt like they look nice next to that pink and red. I will actually, well, not completely. I will completely overhaul the left side, the quote, the girls can. I do this every monthly setup. I do the quote page, I do the cover page, and I'm like, okay, good enough, so I can start my weeklies and my other setups. And then when I'm looking back at it, I just don't like it. So I always end up changing it. It's like I can't picture how it should look until I've done all of the other setups. So I might in the future actually record that last and see how it goes. Now on these leaves here, I didn't give them enough of an edge around it. They're just kind of blobs sticking out of that vine. So I went back in with that white Jelly Roll pen. Using the POSCA paint markers too to do a lot of outlining and lines. I love them. I love them so much. I wish they would come out with other colors. I don't have any difficulty with them. The ink is always there. The line is always good. Just give them a little shaky shake before you get started. They work so, so well. All right, for my monthly setup, I wanted to incorporate some craft paper here too, but also circles. I tried to do a fancy little scissors or X-Acto knife inside of my circle maker, and you know what? It just wasn't happening. So I ended up tracing the circle, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to try that either. So I used some washi tape, and I ended up slicing into the tape. I've done this trick a lot, and I've not had the issue of slicing into my tape before. I don't know what I was doing differently here, but don't worry, the tape is fine. I made a mistake there. I meant to use brown at the top. I realized it thankfully before I did it too many times. I wanted a kind of deconstructed calendar, but one that I would still use and be able to write in. So I sketched it out with all the lines in between, but then I only actually colored in the lines, like the horizontal lines. I also wanted to bring in craft paper again, so I'm doing Dutch door. And I'm going to use some craft paper to make lists over on the right side. I had that really cool kind of dashboard, almost monthly layout for February, and it looked so cool, and I was like, yes, this is going to help me be so productive because it looks so cool. I did not go back to it hardly at all. So in January, my monthly was sort of like this. I had the Dutch doors, and I felt like I was much more productive then. So I went back to that for this month. It could have just been life. life was whack in February, so who knows? But this, I think, will work really well for me. The thing that's important to note with these super tips or Tombows, most markers like this, if they're a lighter color, any pencil markings will show through. So I'm being lazy here. I didn't erase anything yet. So I'm just trying to color in the lines above the pencil. I will erase the pencil and do it the right way in a minute. You would think that even after you colored over it, you would be able to erase pencil, but that is not always the case. Notice too, over on the right side, when I was coloring those lines, I have some spare paper between the Dutch doors. So don't panic. I didn't color into anything that I needed to be worried about. I think the most challenging part for this setup was looking for enough shapes to fill the space but to not look too busy. And I've got to say, those waves came in really handy for that purpose. So I've got my big old sun there. I'm filling it in with those really pretty rainbow at the bottom. It almost reminds me of a sunset. This ends up being like the prettiest monthly I think I will ever create. It just does, right? When there's different colors, streaks in the sky right at sunset. That was not my intention, but hey, it worked out. The nice thing too, I don't know if you noticed earlier, but the nice thing too about those white pens is that you can scrape them off so easily. I messed up March and I just barely touched the paper with that X-Acto knife and it was wonderful. I will also end up tweaking the calendar page a little bit before the final flip through. It's not as drastic. It's just where I have that green wave kind of ending right there. I end up putting a tan line at the bottom, a really thin one. I just feel like right now it looks a little strange. There needs to be more definition between the two spaces. I also try, if you're using a Crayola super tip like this, I don't always accomplish it, but I try to get the brush strokes to kind of line up. Like you see how, oh, sorry, there's a crow outside the window. You see how there are circles inside the circle, and then it's just like perfectly symmetrical waves inside of the brown, I'm going to call it a rock. I feel like it looks much better if you can do that. And again, I'm adding the shamrocks because it's March and I need to. You can leave those out, or you could do the poppies up here, whatever you wanted. Alright, now I'm getting ready to cut out the actual Dutch door part. Notice that I put a spare piece of paper between the layers. That way, if I need to press a little bit harder on the page to cut it off, it doesn't cut through to a page that I need to keep. I do end up having to be a little bit finicky with it. I don't get the line perfectly straight, even though I'm using the ruler. I'm not sure what happened there, but it happens. Okay, this is actually where I'm getting this craft paper from. It's not what I was using for the headers and things, but in one of my Archer and Olive mystery box unboxings, I got this bad boy, that beautiful, it's the same size as this, so I love it. I wish I had a black one in this B5 size so I could do the same thing with black, but I only have the normal, like, I think it's A6 with the black paper. But anyway, I'm pulling out the dotted craft paper, and just, don't those colors just look so nice? So I'm using just the whiteout pen over here. I probably could have used markers, but it bothered me that they might not have been, like, the tones would have been off on top of the craft paper. Now the trick with these white gel pens is the angle for me. If I write, like if I'm pressing directly down on the paper, I usually get some sort of ghosting in the ink, or it doesn't come out as opaque as I need it to. But if I can get it kind of on its side at an angle, that's when she really shines. On the inside here, I am doing a YouTube tracker and kind of YouTube growth and YouTube ideas. Obviously, not everybody watching this is going to need a YouTube tracker, so you could use it for anything. You could do a weight loss tracker, an exercise tracker, sort of a monthly budget setup, and put your bills on the left and your spending on the right, or your savings goals. The possibilities are endless. So anything you need a long, skinny list for, there you go. trying to carry over some decorations here, but I want to keep as much room to brainstorm and track as I need. So I'm keeping the decorations on the inside very minimal. Now this one is for an Instagram tracker and growth tracker and ideas. So obviously, like I said, you don't need that here, but I feel like this is what was super helpful with me for January. So I tried to bring it over and refine it a little bit. I want to point out too that I have been switching back and forth between I think it's the 7 and the 5 or the 7 and the 3. I'll have them linked either way, and tips for those POSCA markers. So if I'm doing like the dots or circles, I will use the thicker tip, and for the lettering or the smaller dots or sometimes those poppies, I will use the thinner tip. This is going to be the page for my trackers. I wanted to incorporate the waves. I did that in my reading journal and I really like the way that it looks, so I did the same thing here. I'm really hoping that I utilize my trackers more this month than I did last month. I used to love the heck out of some trackers. I would use them for literally everything, and there was something so satisfying about marking off, hey, I did that today. But for some reason I cannot get myself to sit down and mark when I do things. It's driving me nuts. Over here on the right is going to be my brain dump. When I watched these videos before I had a bullet journal, I was like, what the heck do you use a brain dump for? But now that I'm using a bullet journal, I know. Any random list I need, like I need to buy this soon, or I need to brainstorm some recipe ideas, I need to brainstorm house projects. Like, I'm loving having a brain dump in here. So if you don't have a spread like this, I highly recommend. All right, now I am going to have my currently page over here on the left. That is something that I used to use a lot in the Happy Planner, and I just really like it. I think it's fun to look back and see what I was loving to watch, what I was loving to read, what I was loving to eat during that month. It's kind of like a really quick snapshot of my life. So I'll do categories like loving, watching, reading, cooking, but you could also do like making, do your favorite workouts. The possibilities are endless. And again, I'm carrying the wave through, except this time the wave is brown and the sun is red. and again, it was not my intention to make it look like a sun, but it does, so I'm cool with it. Over on the right, I have my highlights. This is something I used to just solely use a bullet journal for, were my highlights. I would write down just things that make me happy that month. Sometimes it would be like a kid wrote me a note, or a kid said something sweet or funny, or I saw an owl in my backyard, just random things like that. Again, it's like a little snapshot of my life, and I really missed doing that. I stopped because I filled up that last journal, and then I was like, well, I'm going to switch to bullet journaling now. I don't need that, and for some reason, I just never incorporated those pages. It was very silly. So I added one this month, and I can't wait to fill it in. thing about all of these doodles and shapes, I got in a groove eventually, but at first I did have a really hard time with the spread. I actually filmed this over a 2-day period because I just kept making mistakes and I kept getting so frustrated. I actually sliced out like 3 pages of my journal because I just hated the way they looked. It was getting late and I was very tired and I was not in the best mood in the world, so I had to step away. Day 2 was much better, and the shapes and patterns and things, I was just kind of getting in a flow, and it ended up looking really good. So I know this is going to sound really maybe strange to someone who doesn't doodle a lot, but I feel like it looks a lot better when I just kind of let go and go with the flow and kind of feel out the drawings. You know, if I want to draw a wave, and it ends up looking really good. Now we are on to my first weekly, so this is the last layout of this video. I wanted to incorporate these shapes obviously in the same colors, but I wanted to leave myself tons of room to write, so I do tend to use this layout a lot, this sort of vertical layout, where I fill the top with colors and doodles and shapes, and then I leave the days underneath blank. It works for me, and I like the idea of having one specific doodle for each day of the week. So it really kind of separates the days of the week, but all of the drawings still look really nice together. The only thing I might do in the future is stamp like the monthly calendar up at the top somewhere, maybe over one of those drawings. I do miss having that in my weekly layout. I know I have a million calendars stamped throughout this setup, but I like to see it all together. Tell me, what are your themes for March? I'm curious. Did you stick with shamrocks? Did you find another way to incorporate green? I tried to look up March themes on Pinterest and just the general internet, and the only green kind of themes I saw were like leaves or cacti. I consider the leaves ones, but I've tried to do those really cool like elephant ear leaf doodles before, and I failed hard. So I ended up going with this because I was like, well, these doodles look kind of messy anyway. How can I mess that up, right? Anyway, please tell me what you decided on. Alright, that's about everything for this weekly layout. Be sure to stick around for the final flip through so you can see how I fixed the March cover page and the quote page. It actually looks really, really good. Like I said, I think I might record that last next time just so I can get a better idea of how I want it to look. All right, here we go. Time for the final flip through. Bye, friends.